Obese men are ticking time bombs when it comes to developing low testosterone, infertility, erectile dysfunction, benign prostatic hyperplasia, blood clots, and even potentially lethal ones, as well as potentially bladder cancer. However, with as little as one or two rather simple interventions, all six of those nasty issues could be completely eliminated. Now, some nuanced explanation of the six issues I did mention is needed because understanding the issues will help you understand why and how the strategies that we implement will help, but also because, well, there's a set of tools in this protocol that can be wielded very safely, and they can be a really good addition to your arsenal, especially if you're an obese man or you know an obese man that you care about. But if haphazardly jumped into without proper guidance beforehand, these tools can be somewhat of a double-edged sword that cuts the wielder. So the main issue here is that obese men obviously have a lot of excess fat, and excess fat or adipose tissue has a very dense expression of an enzyme called aromatase or CYP19A1. What this enzyme does is it converts testosterone, the so-called male sex hormone, into estradiol, which is the most predominant and potent form of estrogen in the male body throughout life. In adult men, estradiol plays many crucial roles in the body, including but not limited to. So number one is it regulates sex hormone synthesis, and it somewhat dictates actually how much testosterone your testicles can synthesize. Number two is it protects and regenerates arteries, especially the arteries around the heart and the ones in the brain. Number three, one that's very well known, is that it actually helps to maintain bone mineral density throughout life in males. Number four, estradiol is actually a crucial regulator of your mood, and it does that by modulating neurotransmitter systems such as the serotonin system. And number five, estradiol is actually the primary driver of libido in men. So all of that sounds great, and obviously it is. Without estradiol, there is no life, okay? But too much of a good thing can be a bad thing. So let's start off with what's called the hypothalamic pituitary testes axis in men. This is what's called, what's referred to as the HPTA. And this axis is composed of your hypothalamus and anterior pituitary in your brain, which communicate to your testicles how much testosterone and, well, other functions such as sperm production and differentiation they can do. And they do that through, well, first off, the hypothalamus secretes a hormone into the bloodstream called GnRH, or gonadotropin releasing hormone. And once that hits the anterior pituitary then releases into the bloodstream two other hormones called luteinizing hormone and follicle stimulating hormone. Those two hormones act on the testes. So LH is what's going to mostly stimulate the testicles to produce testosterone. And FSH, in the testicles specifically, only has the role of stimulating sperm differentiation, maturation, etc. Now, estradiol plays what's called a negative feedback role in this axis. So if estradiol concentrations are excessive, it inhibits GnRH synthesis and release at the level of the hypothalamus, because your body doesn't want to produce too much sex hormones. It can be damaging. So not only can estradiol be damaging in excess, testosterone can be as well. And in obese men who have, especially, the more obese they are and the longer they've been obese, they can have estradiol levels that are, well, double what some other men have, and even sometimes more than that. So they can have estradiol levels at even, let's say, for example, up to 80 picograms per milliliter, 90 picograms per milliliter. Yeah, it can be extreme. And really, it doesn't need to ever be over 50 picograms per milliliter. And even that's kind of pushing it a little bit, but we'll get into that later. And this is going to inhibit hypothalamic GnRH release at a very potent level. It's going to be to an extreme extent. And this in and of itself is going to lead to low testosterone. It's going to lead to infertility in a lot of men, and it's going to lead to erectile dysfunction. But erectile dysfunction can also be caused by estradiol through a different mechanism, which is its role in promoting benign prostatic hyperplasia, which is not as benign as it sounds. The word benign there is specifically to specify that it's an enlarged prostate that's not cancerous. And well, BPH, or benign prostatic hyperplasia, is usually thought of as a DHT condition. So DHT is the most androgenic hormone in your body, dihydrotestosterone, which is the product of 5-alpha reducing testosterone through an enzyme called 5-alpha reductase, particularly type 2, into dihydrotestosterone. And that's why there's drugs such as finasteride and dutasteride that inhibit that enzyme, as well as other isoforms of it. And they can pretty much flatline DHT. And that flatlining of DHT can really very potently treat the BPH. Estradiol, however, it causes BPH that's different than that which is caused seemingly by DHT. So in estradiol-mediated, or mostly estradiol-mediated benign prostatic hyperplasia, it differs from DHT-mediated benign prostatic hyperplasia in that not only does it increase the mass like DHT does in the prostate, mass and volume, but it also seems to cause a lot of fibrosis in the prostate, which is very unusual, compared to DHT, BPH. And fibrotic tissue in the prostate means there's now tissue inside your prostate that's not well vascularized at all, that is not contractile, it doesn't move on its own, it just sort of moves with everything else that moves around it. And that actually makes men with benign prostatic hyperplasia due to obesity have it very early. So they have an early onset of their BPH. Now, it is not new that obese men are more likely to have a tendency to develop benign prostatic hyperplasia earlier in life and more aggressive than non-obese people. However, when compared to each other, not just to non-obese people, obese men can actually have more voluminous prostates in relation to their serum estradiol level. So that further proves the theory that estradiol is a main driver really of benign prostatic hyperplasia, at least in obese men. And above and beyond that, obesity itself seems to shift the enzymatic activity in the prostate from androgenic to estrogenic. So it lowers the expression of the 5-alpha reductase type 2 enzyme, which converts testosterone into dihydrotestosterone, and it seems to upregulate aromatase in the prostate as well. So obesity and estradiol actually have somewhat synergistic effects in really ruining the prostate, to be honest. Benign prostatic hyperplasia in and of itself is a cause of bladder cancer because benign prostatic hyperplasia really forbids the patient from voiding properly, and that leads to bladder thickening and then bladder dilation and then bladder cancer. However, obese people are known to be predisposed to many different cancers that I won't get into, and I won't get into the reasons why, but they are particularly also predisposed to bladder cancer. And there can be a synergistic effect there as well, a negative synergistic effect that is, with BPH and estradiol and obesity all combining together to manifest bladder cancer in a patient. Now, when it comes to blood clots, estradiol stimulates the liver to synthesize what's called clotting factors, and it can give an excess of clotting factors. So when obese people are also injured, have a physical injury, they're more likely to have what's called a hypercoagulable state. So a much more potent and aggressive tendency to actually form clots than if they were not obese. You know what I mean? Now, what's the pattern that you see here? It's all estradiol related. All of these issues, pretty much, all 6 of them are estradiol related. So how can we solve that? We can lower estradiol, but as we've discussed before as well, in men, estradiol plays crucial roles, for blood vessel health, for bone health, brain health, etc. So what's the trick here? Well, to lower estradiol, we really have 3 main options nowadays. One is called anastrozole. You may have heard it referred to as Arimidex. We have letrozole, which is the one that's most studied in this context. And we have aromacin or exemestane, which is really not studied at all in this context. Now, exemestane would be the mildest one and the one I would choose if I were personally obese, or even, let's say just 50 pounds overweight, and I want to experiment with this vector in order to, raise my testosterone, improve my fertility, potentially gain strength in the gym, reduce my BPH risk, even improve BPH symptoms. Exemestane would be the one I would go with if I were up to, let's say, 60 pounds overweight, 70 pounds overweight, something like that. Letrozole, on the other hand, is the strongest and most aggressive one. Well, it is used in massive doses when it comes to actually trying to normalize testosterone levels and optimize fertility in obese men at doses that are pretty crazy, up to 17.5 milligrams a week. Before diving into any protocol of this sorts, if you are an obese man or you know an obese man and he's interested in actually solving all these issues and diminishing the risks to minimal levels and really gaining quality of life, the best thing to start with would be exemestane at 6.25 milligrams twice a week, but not before getting blood work. So if the estradiol level is at 50 to 60, then 6.25 milligrams of exemestane twice per week should be sufficient to start with, and you can retest after, let's say, 1 or 2 weeks. It's also important to get ultra-sensitive estradiol testing, because if you get what's called ECLIA, electrochemiluminescence immunoassay testing, it's rather inaccurate, especially for estradiol, because it cross-detects so many. So I'm not going to get into the nuances of the test, but it's better to get liquid chromatography with tandem mass spectrometry for the most accurate number. So that's what's called sensitive or ultra-sensitive testing of estradiol, and you can actually get it for other hormones as well. But anyway, the other compound that could be added on top of an aromatase inhibitor, so on top of a letrozole or an exemestane or an anastrozole, is Testovive. So Testovive is our partner VitaStream's peptide complex derived from the testes of animals, and it is a not derivative, but somewhat of a successor to testolutin, which is a Khavinson peptide product. And testolutin is more of an old school formula for synthesizing these peptide complexes, whereas Testovive includes a lot more peptides, including the cytogen called testogen, which is actually not found in testolutin. However, testolutin and testogen would also be, good options to add there. So what these will do is actually increase testosterone production in the testicles, which in and of itself is going to promote fertility, in and of itself is going to really sort of protect from erectile dysfunction in many, many cases. Also have these add-on benefits of improving mood, improving quality of life, potentially sleep, etc. So Testovive would be my main option because it has the highest concentration of peptides derived from the testicle due to VitaStream's improved formula for extracting these peptides. So final protocol would be, so let's say someone is just 50, 60 pounds, maybe 70 pounds overweight, starting out with 6.25 milligrams of exemestane twice per week, alongside 2 to 4 capsules of Testovive, upon waking 30 minutes before food. In the study with men who are actually of very, very high BMI, I'm talking 42 BMI, 44 BMI. So imagine someone at 5'8" and they're 280 pounds or near 300 pounds, whatever. With the higher doses of letrozole, that was proven to actually really normalize their, bring their testosterone back into normal range, have pretty much no side effects, and make fertility better than it ever was for an obese man, especially in that sort of BMI class. The problem with letrozole is it's hard to dose it properly, even though it's the most potent one and it was Leo and Longevity's favorite aromatase inhibitor. You can really overdose on it very, very, very easily, and you can have all the side effects that are undesirable, such as joint pain and depression and anxiety, etc. That is why start doing exemestane and Testovive alone would suffice very, very well for this purpose at the doses that I've already listed for you. If you've enjoyed this video and if you think it's going to help you, if it did help you, please leave a like and a comment. It helps the algorithm a lot. This has been Dr. Ali from the Peptide Science Institute. Thank you for watching. And wait for more videos like this, maybe even more for obese men and obese women. Let's see. Goodbye.